A sage warning. Folks, we are Americans, patriots. We're a breed apart. We rebelled against the most dominant empire on earth with a ragtag group of citizen soldiers. We created a nation that insists on constitutional rule of law and not of men. We know how flawed rulers can be, and we question them, or at least we did. Fauci, Walensky, Biden, Bill Gates, stoking fear and benefiting from the societal retreat. No more. Enough. We shouldn't listen to this kind of dribble and submit to such propaganda, even if it's cloaked in well-meaning wishes for our health. We're not going to fall for it anymore, and thankfully, Texas is not. Joining us now to discuss this and more is Trump Organization Executive Vice President Eric Trump. Eric, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Curious your reaction. I am happily now. Previously I claimed the name deplorable, as many of us did. It was meant as a pejorative, of course, from Hillary Clinton, and we embraced it. I think now we might have to consider ourselves Neanderthals, given how well Texas is doing regarding the virus and reopening. Your thoughts? Are you a Neanderthal, Eric?
Yeah, clearly we all are. And by the way, guys, you're killing it with the new show. We love it. I've been watching it, and you guys are doing a great job. But listen, I live in New York, right? I've lived in New York. I go into the office every single day, and I literally look out a window, and I see buildings that were just empty all throughout the pandemic. Then I'd go down to Florida, and guess what? Everybody's, enjoying life. They're doing well. And the cases were substantially lower in Florida. And I heard what you just said, Steve, about Texas. It's such a great point. How could everybody be living free and enjoying life and living like Americans and living in a free society, yet New York has literally decimated the entire state. The entire state has been shut. New York City has been shut. The restaurants have gone out of business. The shopping centers and the malls have literally closed. Small businesses have closed at alarming rates in this state. Yet their numbers, and you just did it on that chalkboard, their numbers are substantially higher than other states like Texas and Florida and so many others that weren't nearly as restrictive. What does that tell you? And then you have a hypocritical governor this week, Governor Cuomo, who literally comes out and says, we're not going to listen to the CDC. They were always the guys that said, the science matters. We're not going to listen to the CDC. Even though the CDC came out and said, if you're a vaccinated person, you can take out your mask. No, New York's not going to follow, those rules. Then all of a sudden he starts getting hit, and he kind of changed course today. But I'm sick of the hypocrisy. I'm sick of the nonsense. Right. The lockdowns in this state absolutely killed New York State. They didn't need to have happened. And listen, it's really amazing to see how well other places are performing, relatively speaking, who actually allowed American freedom to reign.
Eric, as more of the country starts to see some return to normal, there's a lot, unfortunately, that is nowhere near normal. You look back to before the pandemic, record low unemployment. You look to, even last year, the border was under control. Gas prices were the lowest that they had been in years. We could go through a long list of what has changed since Biden has taken office. When you look at where things are today, this week in particular, as so much is happening, what do you find most shocking?
Well, listen, Jen, I find it heartbreaking. I find it heartbreaking as a person who's literally spent the last, 5-6 years fighting for this country. I mean, my father finds it heartbreaking. Look at it, a piece of 2x4 right now is $10. A piece of plywood is literally $70, $80, depending on where you are. Gas has doubled and tripled in some places. Obviously, you see the gas shortage all over, the Southeast, and and what's happening there are lines. I mean, this is going back to Jimmy Carter era, fuel problems. I mean, look what's happening in Israel right now, where they're getting shelled by rockets. I mean, that would have never happened under my father. And, and then extrapolate that out, guys. I mean, you literally have Putin that's probably, licking his lips as he sees what's happening, and kind of the lack of kind of the void, the vacuum of American dominance, not doing anything about this crisis in the Middle East, saying, you know what? Right. If they can get rid of this, if the Palestinians can get rid of this, guess what? I bet we can do the same thing to Ukraine. And China's probably saying, we can probably do the same thing to Taiwan. And we can, I mean, guys, just extrapolate the problems out. There is a void of leadership in this country. Crime is skyrocketing. Prices are going through the roof. Inflation is going absolutely crazy. People can't put fuel in their car. People are afraid. It's sad. My father had these problems under control. The border is an absolute mess. That didn't need to be the case. The wall was working, and they were building miles and miles and miles of it every single day. And these reckless policies are literally destroying our country.
You know, when you mentioned the border, why the hesitancy for Biden or Kamala Harris to go down there?
I think because it's an absolute mess. Clearly, they don't want a border wall. They are, they want any illegal immigrant to be able to run across an invisible line. They don't want to do a single thing about it. They don't care about immigration. They don't care about results. Frankly, Jen, if you want to know the answer, I think they're lazy. I think they lack motivation. I think they lack the charisma to do what my father did. My father was on a plane every single day. He was literally going somewhere every single day. And where are these two? Why don't you ever hear from them? Why don't, they're not giving press conferences. They're not going out in the Rose Garden like my father was. They aren't doing press conferences as they're getting on Air Force One. They're not traveling anywhere. I mean, there just seems like it's a, there's a vacuum in Washington. There's no energy. There's no speed. There's no, desire to actually fix these problems. And
no,
that is depressing.
It's an incredibly different era, unfortunately, Eric. I do want to also ask you about the era that the Republican Party is in, because corporate media and the Democrats want us to believe that there's some sort of civil war afoot. But when we look at the actual voters of the Republican Party, maybe not legacy office holders, but voters, we see relative unanimity. There was some polling that came out over the weekend from CBS. Your father amplified some of this polling, understandably so, because it was very positive to him and to the America First movement. And on key economic issues, they asked Republican voters where they stand and do they support the Trump America First vision. And on the economy, 89%, immigration, 88%, interacting with the media, 77%. These kinds of numbers, Eric, tell me that the party has been fully transformed into a pro-Trump America First party. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, my father did a tremendous job and he brought results, and that's what people wanted. He wasn't the politician. He went in there and he fought for the American people, and that's what literally Americans love. And guys, honestly, I'm my own little barometer. I can walk down the street. I feel more Trump love right now than I felt in so long. And there's always tremendous Trump love, but people are seeing the mess that these people are making of this country right now. They're seeing how bad these policies are, right? I mean, the tax policy, the immigration policy, prices, inflation, everything that I mentioned before that's a mess. Wars. Look what's happening with Iran and everything else. I mean, our enemies are becoming emboldened. We're losing the respect around the world and so many other things. Trump's policies worked, and he also fought very, very hard for this country. And as all of it unravels, these people who might not have liked a little mean tweet once in a while, or might not have liked somebody who was, less PC from a personality standpoint, are actually kind of recoiling and saying, you know what? On second thought, that man was actually incredibly effective for this country versus what we have right now. And I think what it's going to lead to in 2022 is going to be incredible. I think what it's going to lead to in 2024 is going to be something very special. I don't think it's the last you've seen of Trump, to say the least. But I really think we're going to have decisive victories because of it. I mean, you couldn't have a larger contrast between two worldviews, and this current worldview isn't working.
Eric, I want to ask you about something you tweeted about recently. I know how much you value and respect our law enforcement. Particularly, you mentioned the Secret Service in that tweet. We just passed National Police Week. Biden issued a statement where he really focused on the deep sense of distrust, as they put it, towards the police. I know your father also a fierce supporter of our law enforcement. They supported him as well. Your reaction to how things have changed and just that law enforcement feels like they don't have that support anymore?
Law enforcement, men and women, and you know this, Jen. I mean, I'm the biggest law enforcement person. It's some of the greatest men and women in the world, hands down. And it's really interesting. You look at Minneapolis, right? They had cries a year ago. Let's defund the police, right? No one had ever heard that before. They realized what a bad campaign slogan that was, so they kind of reversed course. But all of a sudden, the city council went and actually defunded, police in Minneapolis. And guess what? Crime went through the roof. They literally went back to law enforcement. They begged them to come back to patrol the streets because, the world just got out of control. I mean, men and women, I'm not saying that there's not bad apple here and there. There is in every profession, but men and women of law enforcement are incredible people. They're treated horribly by the media. They're treated horribly by so many. But thank God we have them, because honestly, you'd have anarchy. And we've seen it. I mean, we've seen it with Antifa. We've seen it with people burning down Portland and Seattle and Minneapolis and so many other places. Thank God we have the incredible men and women. And It
Right.
sickens me when the media takes shots at them, and it sickens me when other people take shots at them because they do so much good in society.
Eric, I want to ask you, your father said that he's going to have an event in North Carolina in June. Are we going to see more of President Trump on the road?
Steve, you're going to see a lot more of him. And again, it kind of goes to that void that I was talking about. I mean, you literally have 75 million plus Americans right now who don't have a voice, don't have an outlet. They don't think anybody represents them. They don't think anybody cares about them. This is exactly what, frankly, they found in 2016, where they were voiceless, and it's one of the things that really attracted them to Trump. And it's, when you have a media that is as propagandist as it is, and you have, an administration that's doing what, I mean, they're literally looking to somebody as their savior, and they're really looking to my father in that way. And I think he will continue to fill that void. He's going to go out there. He's going to go on the road. He's going to see the American people. He loves doing that. There's frankly no one better at it than he is. But I'm telling you, there's a major yearning in this country for some normalcy and some patriotism and somebody who actually loves red, white, and blue. And I think you'll see a lot of my father, and I can't wait personally. Those rallies, they never get old. They're always a lot of fun. And this administration, Steve, is giving him a lot of ammo. It's, they're kind of digging their own grave, but it's certainly giving them and him a lot of ammo, to say the least. They're going to be
Eric,
they're going to be a lot of fun. They're going to be very entertaining.
We are so looking forward to having him back on the road and to watching those rallies. Thanks so much for being with us tonight, Eric Trump.
You're welcome, Jen.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.